Hello, Conservative Kitty here. People talk about their Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. Today, we're going to dig into the Second Amendment, all 27 words of it. There is a group of people on the radical political left in the United States, and they want to deny law-abiding American citizens of their legal right to keep and bear arms. We should not let the liberals prevail on this. It should be pointed out that most of the gun control controversy is really just academic, or at least the gun control debate should be just academic. Why? Because the Second Amendment to the Constitution is very clear. Gun ownership is a constitutionally guaranteed right just as much as is freedom of speech or freedom of religion. And the right to bear arms is, quote, settled law, if there ever were such a thing. The legal right to own a gun in the U.S. is simply indisputable. Gun ownership rights have been protected for over 200 years, ever since the Bill of Rights was adopted way back in 1791. Let's review the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. It is only 27 words long, and it is not that hard to understand. It states, quote, a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, unquote. There are two parts to this statement. The first part talks about militias, and we'll discuss that in a minute. The second part of the amendment is crystal clear. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It doesn't mention why a person may want a gun, for target practice or hunting, collecting, or personal protection, and it doesn't matter at all why you have a gun. You have a right to both keep and bear arms, and the government cannot infringe or restrict that right. The liberals need to back off and quit harassing other citizens on this point. It has been decided long, long ago. Back to the first part of the Second Amendment. So what exactly is a militia? Well, George Mason, one of the Virginian founding fathers who actually refused to sign the Constitution because it initially lacked a Bill of Rights, he stated, quote, who are the militia? They consist now of the whole people, unquote. Got it? In other words, the militia includes the whole people. That means everyone is in the militia. Merriam-Webster defines militia as, quote, a group of people who are not part of the armed forces of a country but are trained like soldiers, unquote. The colonial militia consisted of armed citizens, men usually between the ages of 16 and 60, fathers and sons living in little hamlets like Lexington and Concord. The militias protected their local community. These militias were not part of any national army because the U.S. did not have a national army when the Revolutionary War started. By the way, the most elite of the colonial militia were called Minutemen. The main point is this. A militia is composed of private citizens, not the government. The militia is armed with their own weapons, and they defend their community. Why does the Second Amendment use the odd term, well-regulated? Well-regulated to the framers of the Constitution did not mean, as we think of it today, a large bureaucratic organization with countless rules and regulations and inspectors. Rather, the phrase well-regulated was in common use long before 1791, and it meant that something was in proper working order. Well-regulated in the Second Amendment means self-regulated, calibrated correctly, and properly functioning, kind of like a clock. Obviously, you could not have a well-regulated militia unless each militiaman had their own gun. So the Second Amendment ensures that everyone has a right to keep their own arms and also bear those arms. Let's take a look at a well-known example of a militia from American history. On April 19, 1775, the British General Gage ordered 700 British soldiers, called regulars or redcoats, to march from Boston to Lexington and Concord, Massachusetts. The purpose of the march was to disarm the colonists and to specifically confiscate weapons stored in a colonial armory that was located in Concord, Massachusetts. Yes, in this case it was the British who were the original gun grabbers in America. Fortunately, Paul Revere and a few others alerted the local militias the night before. So they were prepared when the British soldiers arrived the next morning. The British and the colonists had some skirmishes throughout the day, and then a real shooting battle at North Bridge in Concord. Finally, the colonial militias chased the humiliated British soldiers all the way back to Boston. Eventually, the Americans won the Revolutionary War versus England and gained their independence. The Revolutionary War was won in large part due to citizens owning their own weapons and protecting their own communities. The Lexington-Concord battles provide a textbook case of how a well-regulated militia can really work, and it shows the importance of people being armed to fight against their oppressors. It is not surprising that the Founding Fathers were anxious to create the Second Amendment. They flatly stated, quote, "The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." Americans today need to push back against the leftist liberals who want to deny Americans of this very important fundamental right. Hopefully, you will never need to actually fire a weapon to defend yourself from domestic tyrants in your own government. With any luck, you will never need to use a firearm to defend yourself against a rapist, robber, mugger, or foreign invader. But either way, Americans need to be armed and understand their Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. Then, if a dangerous situation ever does arise, at least people will be prepared and have a fighting chance. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, or subscribe.